Welcome to the Empower Hour, guys. I'm your host, Maile Scarpino. I'm here with Keiko Akamine. We work together, but we also grew up together, kind of. We went to Iolani. So we started, I knew you in the 8th grade. And Keiko always wrestled, and I always ran cross country, and we would always be hungry around the same time. And she would come into math class and be like, I watched Food Network all last night, just dreaming about what I get after your wrestling matches, because you'd have to make weight.
Yeah.
So now we're kind of both grown up. Yay.
Sort of.
More
or less.
Interestingly enough, we both got into psychology. So Keiko's really interested in psychology of sports, and we don't have a sports psychologist on the island, and she's kind of trying to dabble in that direction and make it happen here. So she's going to talk about that. She's going to give her background first, talk about where she's from. You know she's from here now, but anyways, we'll hand the spotlight over to you. Hit it, Keiko.
Well, I was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I started at Iolani since kindergarten. Met Maile in 7th or 8th
Oh man, you're a daughter.
I'm a daughter.
That's what we call Iolani daughters and sons.
Sons and daughters.
Ooh.
And sports has always been a really big part of my life. I started in gymnastics when I was really little, and then started judo when I was around 6 or 7, and that became more important than gymnastics. I started doing judo, my main sport, and then...
Why did you prefer judo? Because I've always wondered that with you. Like, you like your jiu-jitsu and your judo.
To be honest, I think at the time I was probably around 9 or 10 when I decided for good I was going to quit gymnastics and just stick to judo. I think it's because I was scared of heights. And I mean, I like the aspect or the competing one-on-one with someone rather than competing for a score or against the clock or something like that. But I think when it came down to making that decision, I was terrified of the beam and the bars, and I thought that throwing people around in a room was much more fun than swinging and falling to my death in gymnastics.
Hilarious.
But
because Keiko's like the little, you're like not afraid of anything. Like you just look at her and you're like, she's not afraid of anything. And now hearing that, that's hilarious.
Yeah, but for me, it ended up being the right decision because it led me to wrestling, that was all I did, middle school, high school, a little bit in college, and wrestling is a lot of what made me into who I am today.
You want to talk about that? Why it made you into? I mean, because I feel like as an athlete, that's what happens. Like your sport makes you. I was talking about that like on one of my shows on the first one. Like playing volleyball taught me like how to be passionate and organized and determined.
Definitely, and it shapes so much of the kind of personality traits you end up getting, all the psychological and everything. The kind of personality traits, it shapes like the development of your self-confidence, what you think of yourself. And for me, wrestling and judo, before I started judo, I was really shy. I wouldn't talk to anyone. I wasn't that confident. And being able to step out on the mat in front of all these people that I don't know and compete against someone who's trying to like rip my head off and beat me up and not be scared of that and having that be normal, that being part of my sport and what I do, that definitely gave me a lot of confidence, especially being a girl in a sport that
is man-dominated.
Yeah. But when I was a kid, I don't remember ever thinking like, oh, I'm a girl, but I wrestle. It always was, I'm a wrestler. So it gave me an interesting perspective on the kinds of things that women can do and should be doing and how limiting society is for what women can and should do. Because I never thought like that when I was a kid and I was wrestling, and my coaches never treated me any different, my teammates never treated me any different. And yeah, I have them to credit for a lot of the confidence I have today, I guess, and the things that I want to do.
Yeah, because you are definitely different from when we were younger. I've always been like, la 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 la, like the talkative, like, like I talk too much. I probably TMI a lot. Too much information.
Well, that's what we love about you, Maile.
No, I'm not so sure about that. But Keiko has always been like the quiet, and you're like the quiet, like not bomb, but like, you know, in the corner, and you're just like, what does she know that I don't know? And you do. You have so much knowledge to like share with everybody, and so that's why I'm so glad you're on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, but talking about stereotypes, because you were saying that, what kind of stereotypes do you see for women?
Oh, I don't even know where to start. I think women in sports in general, because it's such a masculine domain, and having women exist in that masculine domain and still maintain their feminine identity, I think that's such an interesting topic. That's actually what my senior thesis was on. I wrote an honors thesis when I graduated, and it was about women in sports.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah,
I would
definitely.
love to know. Yeah.
The actual thesis was whether or not women that present themselves as more feminine, whether they wear makeup when they're competing or their uniforms are a little more girly, if they're perceived as less athletically competent than a woman that shows up like no makeup, hair tied back, not in a very feminine outfit.
Right.
And so it's the idea that femininity and feminine values are associated with, or they kind of oppose traditional athletic values, which are more in line with masculine traits, like competitiveness, aggression, power. Those are all considered masculine traits. And if a female athlete presents herself as more feminine, I wanted to know if others would view her as less talented as an athlete. Yeah. So
that's really interesting. What are the results?
The findings were kind of interesting. I feel like it's definitely a
toss-up,
an experiment I want to do again, because I feel like the results weren't a direct reflection of the athletes I surveyed. It was kind of more things that I control, things that other experiment things that I didn't really control fully. So it's an experiment I want to be able to do again. But the interesting finding was, I also did a side study for the project, and it was about social physique anxiety. So athletes that are self-conscious about their body types and the way they're built.
You should just, yeah. Right? Like my coach would tell us, your shorts are going to be short next year so that none of you guys have cellulite on your legs. And we would just be like, what?
Yeah.
She'd be like, you guys are going to really work hard in the weight room then. You just hear that, or like when you're getting your body fat taken, and it's like.
Oh yeah, definitely. That all plays into like the way that you view yourself and how confident you are as an athlete.
We had girls like in the 20s, and 20 is like normal. 20 is normal for a woman, and it was too high. You need to be in the teens. You need to be lower than 18%. You need to do more cardio, and you're just like, what?
And then it becomes more about what you look like versus what you
can actually do. And that was ridiculous, because we would go and watch some girls that were liberos, and they were like 3 times bigger than me, and those girls could move like no other, so fast. And I would just be sitting there like, this is a perfect example of the way you look does not determine the way you move.
How good you play, exactly.
Right.
And the finding from that side study was that women that were less confident in their physiques and their body types, they projected that that lack of confidence into the athletes that they competed against. So they rated them as less talented, less physically competent, less athletic. And the why behind that, I'm still not sure. So that's another avenue that I want to explore.
So it was a projection, and it wasn't necessarily projected into their ability.
Yeah, the way that athletes saw themselves impacted the way they viewed their competition.
That's interesting.
So it's fascinating stuff.
That is really interesting. So you graduated with your undergrad in psychology, and now you're going to go back to grad school for psychology, right? So what made you pick psych in college? Where did you go to college?
I went to Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So basically the exact opposite of Hawaii and every
wanted a completely different experience.
I wanted to challenge myself, so I went to the middle of nowhere. No, it was a really great experience though, and just being in that kind of environment so different than where I grew up, that helped me to grow as well.
Do you suggest that people go away for college?
For college, I think so, because undergrad is only going to be 4 years of your life, and if you put yourself somewhere you're going to be comfortable, you don't allow yourself to grow as much as you can, because you're not going to, you can, but most of the time you're not going to stay there after you graduate. You have this set period of time that you can put yourself somewhere that you'll be able to grow the most. And
experience something totally new, and know that if you hate it, you can leave.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But you might love it, and it might be the best thing that you do in life.
Yep.
So,
just wanted to get your opinion on that, because I agree. So people are like, no, stay home, be close to the family. Family is really important, and it is.
That's important. Yeah, that's important too. But
So you went away and you studied psych. Why?
I did.
Why did you pick psych?
I've always been fascinated with people. To be honest, I didn't have much interest in math or science or.
Even though she was really good at it, trust me,
No.
you were always really good at math and science. And I was a kid like, I need extra help. Dr. Cropsey, what do we call him? Doctor something.
Sam.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah,
I need
Mr.
help.
Cropsey.
Yeah, and you were really good at math, so it's surprising.
No, but I feel like I feel like Elani puts you on this path and you think that you have to excel in these certain fields.
Mhm.
And I always felt like, here's the path. I'm kind of on the side, like doing my own thing. I'm still going parallel. I'm still going the same direction, but I always kind of knew that I'd be doing something different than everyone else. And that's kind of what led me to psychology, because I wanted to know the why behind everything, like why people think this way and why like they do certain things, and it just fascinated me because we're surrounded by people every day, like.
And being able to interact with them and understand.
Yeah.
It's helped me so much. Like, I'll be helping somebody and I'm just like, just the way they treat me or the kind of eye contact they make, I'm like, oh, there's something interesting about you. Or, oh, like, you know, I don't know. It's not good. Like, you're not supposed to, you know, diagnose people, and that's not what I'm saying I do, but it gives you, like, more.
Gives you better insight.
It does, into an ability to, like, see people. Or even we went on a excursion for our class this past Wednesday, and we got to go to one place that we've never been with our groups in class. So we went to this Kyoto place in Kaniohe. It's like in the cemetery. You'd have no clue it's back there.
Oh, is this the temple?
Yeah, I think maybe I pronounced it wrong. I don't know. But we went back there, and the whole time, like, me and my classmates are like watching people walk, and we're like, oh wow, they have a great marriage. Oh wow, it looks like they're fighting. Oh wow, this child has more of an attachment to the father than the mother. And it's just like, you don't even mean to do it, and you're all sitting there like, you know, because you're just like more observant about the way people interact and the things that they do on an unconscious level. Anyways.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you wanted to study people. Sorry,
yeah,
I took
and
that
then,
over.
Oh, no. Yeah, so I think in my my junior year of college, I signed up for sports psychology because the sports psychologist on campus teaches one semester of sports psychology maybe every other year, and it fills up with athletes right away. And I thought, oh, like maybe I should see what this is about because I've played sports my whole life. I want to know what makes sports psychology different than like the other types of psychology.
Right.
And after that class, I knew that that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
How'd you know?
Everything that we learned about, straight from the textbook, it's something that I had experienced at some point in my career. And being able to make sense of the things I was feeling at the time, or understanding why this happens, or why some athletes are so motivated and some like lose motivation and burn out, and getting to read about all the things that I've thought about but never really looked into. It fascinated me that that's a field that actually exists and that it's something I could study and pursue as a career.
Completely, and it pertains to your life, and you can use it like day to day. That was like me too. Yeah.
Yeah, so expanding on the fact that we like psychology because we can relate to it every day, being athletes, there's a whole different set of things that you can go into from there in psychology. Yeah.
And do you want to talk about that? Because that's what, as I said, like in the intro, there really aren't a lot of sports psychologists on the island.
Yeah, and overall, it's still a growing field in the mainland, but it's to the point where the top athletes, Olympians, top college programs, they all have sports psychologists on staff, just because so much of sports is mental. Everything that's not the physical technique itself, if there's some cognition behind it, you can apply psychology to it. And it's everything from what everyone thinks of the most when they think about sports psychology is athletes that get nervous before they compete. And there's so much research and so much that you can do to help athletes overcome that. But even things like rebounding from injuries, there's so much psychological processes behind that, because how do you motivate yourself if you've been building up all this momentum and then you get injured and everything kind of stops? How do you motivate yourself to pick back up and start all over again?
Do you have an answer for that?
It's a process. It's being able to stay positive. It's being able to still find ways to motivate yourself. And for each person it's different, but I feel like where a sports psychologist can help is they help you find what works for you. Yeah.
With that, we're going to take a short commercial break before we jump into the meat of this episode, because Keiko's going to teach us a lot about sports psychology, and she's such a goal setter. I'm excited to hear about that too. Anyways, this is the Empower Hour. I'm your host, Maile Scarpino, and I'm here with Keiko Akamine, and we'll be back in a few. Thanks.
Aloha, my name is Paul Jackson, better known as PJ, and my local interest is in sports. I have my own sports radio show at KWAI AM 1080 that you can stream live. I also have my own website, pjsportsradio.com. We have live guests in studio, and we talk about discussions and topics that everyone wants to know locally here on the islands. We cover everything from surfing to basketball to whatever's going on locally, sports-wise. We try to do our best and cover the topics in depth as much as we can. Once again, thank you for joining PJ here on Hawaii Sports Update. Mahalo.
Hi, I'm Jay Fidel. That's Ted Ralston. You know, Ted is the host of Where the Road Leads. It shows every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. It's about technology. It's about how people collaborating and solve problems with modern technology. It's where the road leads. We all know that. We should all be listening. Join us there, 4 to 5 p.m. every Friday. Now, what about that do you agree with?
All of it.
I knew he'd say that. Aloha. Say aloha.
Aloha.
Good.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island. I work in the ER there. But on Tuesday afternoons, I get to come and spend 45 minutes to an hour with Jay Fidel and the ThinkTech staff. They're terrific professionals. They help us to bring some of the leading cutting-edge topics here across our state to you. So you can join us at our show on healthcare in Hawaii to talk with leaders from across all the spectrum of health in our state, or you can join us for any other show where we talk about economic development or tourism or some really eclectic programs too. So really, we'd love to see you here on our show. Thanks for joining us and thanks for supporting us.
Welcome back to the Empower Hour, guys. I'm your host, Maile Scarpino. I'm here with Keiko Akamine, high school friend, work buddy. We like psychology. Yeah, we just have so many. We're both
So much in common.
Sports enthusiasts. So we were talking about how she likes to do, what were you telling me it was called? Because I just blanked out.
Oh yeah, like my new endeavor that I'm
Yeah, her new endeavor.
on. I'm going into mental coaching for athletes. Since I know I want to end up in the field of sports psychology anyway, I figured, because currently I'm coaching high school wrestling, and I see so many ways to kind of use the things that I've picked up along the way, either as a competitor or that I learned in college.
Can you give us an example? I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I love examples. Like
goal
for me,
setting? Oh, yeah.
Okay, you go first, and then I'll go after.
Something that, or a really easy place to start, or the starting point that I usually start with my athletes, is being able to set goals. And I try to move away from the term goal setting because I feel like most people that sounds like, oh, I'm going to write down this big goal and then I'm just never going to look at that paper again. But I like to think of it more as planning, like making a plan.
Mm-hmm.
So you're listing out the things that you want to be able to accomplish, and then you're finding out how you're going to get there, how you're going to do those things. So my goal setting process is more like just making a plan and
A really detailed plan.
figuring out the steps along the way, like what it's going to take to get to that end goal.
So if I want to go to Australia, how am I going to get the money to do that?
Mm-hmm.
How much money do I need? That means how much money do I need to set aside each month? Like that
Exactly.
kind of stuff.
Yeah. So it's the key to achieving goals is being able to stay on top of those little goals. And I feel like that's the key step that most people miss out on when they set goals, is not being able to achieve the little things along the way, because that gets you to your big goal before you even know it. And if you spend so much time thinking about this big goal, it gets overwhelming. It seems so far away, so distant. But if you take it week at a time, like this week I'm going to set aside this much money by bringing home lunch every day or whatever it is, then before you know it, you're on your way to Australia.
So in terms of athletics, what does that look like?
For the wrestlers, because they have a set high school season and a state championship at the end, their end goal is going to be like the league championships, ILH championships, or state championships, where they want to place or how they want to do, or even something like being able to crack the varsity lineup for championship week or whatever it is. So
What does that mean, crack the varsity lineup? They make the varsity
Yeah.
lineup? Okay.
So we have a set number of starters, and they're the ones that compete at the championships.
Okay.
So knowing what the end goal is, we take a step back and say, what's going to take you to get to that level, to become a state champion or whatever it is. And maybe for some athletes, they need to get their diet under control because they're cutting too much weight every week and it's impacting their performance. So maybe a diet plan is more what they need, something
Okay.
more manageable that they could keep their strength and still stay at that lighter weight. Maybe they need to increase their strength and we'll change their strength conditioning plan. Or maybe they need help in certain aspects of their wrestling game, like they need help with takedowns or having a solid move from top or bottom or whatever it is. But being able to break it down into smaller steps makes the whole goal more manageable, more likely to be
So it's
achieved.
like a deduction process. Like you start with this big thing up top and then you
Yeah.
slowly move out.
Because every big goal can be broken down into smaller, more manageable chunks, and that's the key to.
And how did you get interested in goal
I-
coaching? She helps us make our goals and achieve them.
Because I feel like it's such an important thing, and I've always, even though I didn't have a formal goal setting process when I was a kid or when I was competing, I always knew where I wanted to end up and what I wanted to do, and I knew what it would take for me to get there. And I think my freshman year of high school, I lost in the national finals to this girl that I felt like I should have beat, and that kind of stuck with me. That's a lot of the reason why I went into sports psychology too, was things like that. But there was a picture in the National Wrestling magazine of me losing to this girl, and I saw it and it fired me up so much. I cut it out and I pasted it on my door so that every day until the next nationals I'd have to see her beating me, and that would remind me, I don't want this to ever happen again. My goal is to come back next year and win, dominate. I never want to feel like this ever again. And just little things that work to motivate you, 'cause everyone's different.
Everybody's completely different.
But that's what worked for me, knowing that someone was out there maybe working harder than me, and I just needed the little reminder, daily reminder that like you got to push a little harder today. Someone's out there that's working a little harder than you.
And if they're
Yeah.
working harder, they're inching farther than you
Yeah.
are, that means they may beat
Yeah.
you. I'm the same way. Yeah.
I feel like we're the same in that.
Yeah, we
we're
are.
very competitive people.
Because I was always like, my skill wasn't that good for passing, but I was like, if I can be faster than you and outwork you, you're going to get tired, which means that you have to go on the sideline and rest, and I get all my reps and all your reps, which then
Exactly.
means I get better than you eventually. So I figured it out from that point of view. So I'd always be the hustler, always be quicker than everybody. So now you're doing mental coaching.
Yep.
Okay. And you have, I mean, she's legit. She has business cards and everything.
That makes it legit.
It does.
And there's a Facebook page on the website.
What is the Facebook page under?
The Facebook page is KA, so my initials, Keiko Akamine, KA Athletic Intelligence, and the website is www.athleticintelligencehi.com.
Okay, one more time, www.athleticintelligencehi.com. Okay. So if you want to look into that, everybody, feel free, it's out there. And so what do you do with athletic intelligence? What is it? How does it help people? What is it all about?
I'm basically a performance coach or a mental coach for athletes, and I think the biggest misconception is just the problem athletes that need the mental coaching, but in reality, it's what's going to give like even the top athletes that little bit more of an edge. So I work one-on-one with clients, and the first couple sessions will be to go over main concepts in mental coaching or mental training and kind of get used to the terminology and the kind of thinking processes behind everything. So a lot of it is being able to be really introspective and dig deep and understand yourself before
Right.
you can improve on your performance. So I feel like I'm less of a teacher and more of a guide in the sense that I'm helping this athlete understand what would help them better their performance. And
Oh, so you're very like person-centered. You'll learn that when you get to grad school.
when I get to grad school.
Person-centered therapists, they let the client lead the therapy, and they sit there and they listen and they recap on what the client is saying, but they never direct, or they never kind of influence feelings or thoughts or ask, like, are you feeling this way? No. They totally let the person lead the whole session. And some people like that and some people don't. Some people are like, I'm telling you my life story, I need help, and you're not saying anything. And then you'll get a response of, well, this is your time to figure it out. I'm just here to listen. And you're kind of like, what? That therapy did not. That orientation was not for me. I was like, I can't do this. But so it kind of sounds like that's what you do.
Yeah, so it's some guiding along the way, and then when we reach a roadblock, maybe this athlete is struggling with getting hyped up enough for a game, then I'll introduce certain exercises, and we'll try to come to the root of what's causing that issue, and then see how we can resolve it and how they can train themselves to overcome it during game time, like when it matters. So yeah, it's fun. And a lot of it is fun for me because I get to be my own guinea pig, because I'm still competing, and I still get anxious before I compete. I still get really bummed out when I get injured. So being able to try out things on myself and see how I react and how I respond to different types of exercises.
It helps you in helping other people too. Fun, yeah. And Keiko didn't really explain how good of a wrestler she is. Why don't you tell everybody what your latest accomplishment has been and what you were gonna do?
My latest, well, for wrestling,
or for jiu-jitsu.
For jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I missed the World Championships this year. I sprained my LCL about 4 weeks before the tournament, and I had to drop out. But currently, I'm trying to stay more competitive nationally and internationally, just for fun and just to stay active. And it gives me something to shoot for and something to work. I feel like once you're a competitor, you always kind of need something.
You always are.
Because you're like that too. You athletic mind, you're still competing.
Yep. So even if it's putting away clothes, who can put away the clothes the fastest in the store?
Fold nicer.
Who can write this paper the fastest? I finished. But so what is World Championships?
It's for the IBJJF, and it's the biggest tournament for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in that federation.
That's just kind of what I wanted to get at. It's the competition to be at.
But I was really excited because there's girls from all over the world, and you know that if they're going to that tournament, that they're there because they think they can win. So it's going to attract the best of the best from all over the world, and they're saving money and training all year just to get to California for this one weekend, and it would have been amazing to be able to compete with them. So
how did you overcome that? Because I mean, for an athlete, that's really hard. Being sprained, working this whole time.
It was awful, I'm not gonna lie. But I think realizing that my team was still there to support me and help me through it, and just knowing that this isn't the end, like there's still other tournaments I wanted to do this year. And like, as much as I hate when people say this, there is always next year. Like, this isn't the only tournament.
This isn't the cutoff.
So it definitely motivated me to work harder because now I want it that much more. So hopefully I can stay healthy. That's been my biggest obstacle after a lifetime of judo and wrestling.
And mentally, how do you cope with that?
With the training or the?
With the staying healthy. Because I've never been injured. Like, I've never, knock on wood, torn my ACL or my MCL, and I've seen people come out of, horrible injuries, and then it's like, how do you get back into that? And then they end up hurting themselves again, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
It's tough. It's definitely a long process, and it's a lot of soul searching, and even things as simple as being able to trust that injured joint or injured body part again, to like put enough weight on it and to actually try and use it when you're in practice.
I never thought about that.
It's all the little, and I feel like it doesn't happen overnight. I have good days at practice where if I have an injury and I make a big improvement, like I go through the whole practice without any significant pain, and then there's those really tough days, like when I realized I had to drop out of the tournament. I had gone back to practice and realized that my knee wasn't ready yet. But being able to look at the big picture, and for me personally, that's being grateful that I'm still able to compete after a neck injury I had in college wrestling, which I thought would have ended my career, but just being here today, still training for tournaments, even if they're more just for fun than like, but being able to get back on the mat and compete, for me, that's overall what I'm most grateful for. So in the grand scheme of things, missing one tournament because of an injury, not as big of a deal. I still get to be out there doing what I love. And
oh, yeah. Isn't she sweet? We're going to take a short commercial break. I'm your host, Maile Scarpino. I'm here with Keiko Akamine, and we will be back in a few, guys.
Aloha, I'm Keiko Akamine, president of the Grassroots Institute and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii broadcast network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to ThinkTech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
Welcome back to the Empower Hour. I'm your host, Maile Scarpino. I'm here with Keiko Akamine. We are talking about psychology and sports and jiu-jitsu and just everything.
a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. So we're kind of jumping around here. We're talking about Keiko's experience when she was going to go to World Championships. She hurt her knee. And then you said something about a neck injury. What happened to your neck?
Oh, yeah. I wrestled a little bit in college, and I ended up hurting my neck pretty bad, but because I'm stubborn, I kept working out on it. And by the time I came home and got it checked, I had a herniated disc, C7, and it took a lot of rehab, and I couldn't tilt my head for years without getting stingers down my arm. And only recently, maybe the last 2 years or so, I've been able to finally get over that where I can work out regularly. It was a very long rehab process, but that changed a lot of my perspective on sports and competing also, because this thing that I've been doing for my whole life, suddenly I didn't have it anymore.
You take it for granted.
Definitely,
And you just
yeah.
are like, oh, I can do this any day, and
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
for
And
sure.
then you're like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, so being able to step back and reevaluate everything, it was definitely one of the toughest lessons I had to learn playing sports, but I feel like it was such an important thing to realize, because now I appreciate it so much more. I appreciate just being able to be on the mat training with my teammates, because I didn't have that for a while, and something I'd always taken for granted. Because up until that point, I've been pretty healthy. Like, I had a couple minor injuries in high school, but nothing that took me off the mat for a long period of time.
Do you feel like you give something to the kids that you work with that like maybe you didn't get psychologically? Like, you're able to bring something to the table?
I really want to fill that gap, because when I was an athlete, I was a super hard worker. I try and outwork everyone, like boys and the girls on the team, because I hated losing that much and I wanted to be the best that badly. But the only aspect I didn't focus on was my mind and how that impacted so much of my performance. And going back to that match that I had lost my freshman year, that tournament is in Fargo, North Dakota. It's the wrestling nationals. That's the biggest tournament for high school wrestlers. And I had made to the finals in my freshman year, my first year going. And the girl I was wrestling, I had beaten her like 3 months earlier, super decisively. I think I won like 9-2 or something.
Oh,
so
wow.
I knew that it should have been my tournament and I should win. But then it's in this huge arena. There's 25 mats set up, and the championship mat is raised, so it's on a stage. And there's a spotlight, and they're blasting loud music, and they have you warm up in front of this projection screen, so they project your silhouette while you're warming up, and the announcers like calling out your name, and all of it was just so overwhelming for me. So that was the biggest tournament I've ever been to. I've never been at a tournament where they make you run through a chute to get to your mat, and everyone's cheering, and it was too much for me at the time, where I was so overwhelmed. I choked in the match and I lost. Like, I lost pretty embarrassingly. But if I had known at the time, or even through the other tough matches, tough losses I had through my high school career, that there's a whole field that studies that and why that happens, and that there's people that are just like normal coaches, but they can help you work on your mind. Yeah, I didn't know that there was such thing as that, because sports psychology is still such a growing field. But when I was in high school in Hawaii, that was still, coaches were still like suck it up, like just get tougher, whatever. Like, so no one really, I had never known that was a thing, that's something I could train. I could train mental toughness. I didn't know that. So what I want to do for the kids I coach and my clients and just the athletes in Hawaii in general is I want us to get that mental edge, because we're such a small island, we're isolated, and being able just to find good competition, we have to travel to the mainland, we have to travel outside of Hawaii.
Right. For
a lot of sports, that's the case. But if we can show up with that little bit of a mental edge, because we're already lacking in so many other, we're already disadvantaged.
We're small.
Yeah, we're small, we can only compete against each other. But to make Hawaii athletes more competitive and to fill that gap that I see in training, because there's so many athletes that their work ethic is unstoppable. They're outworking everyone, and to see them get to a big match or a big tournament or a big game and not be able to cope with the pressure or whatever other outside influences, distractions there are, and to lose on something like that, I feel like that's something that could totally be prevented.
It can be. It's just getting used to it. Because even playing in the Pac-12 and you go to like different schools, and I mean, there are people that are just hating on you. They sit there with the roster and read your name. Oh, number 18, Scarpino. It looks like you have a wedgie. I think you have a wedgie. And you're sitting there like, I don't have a wedgie. But I mean, it's embarrassing. You get, you know, you
and
get all
it's
the
so many
attention.
things that you don't practice for in practice.
No.
Because they're all.
My coach actually used to go with the blowhorn, and when we would serve, she'd blow horn in our ear, because it got to that point where we were just like, it would get so overwhelming, some of the things that these people would say to you, and you're like, that's really mean. But it teaches you to have a backbone in a way.
Yeah, definitely. And it helps in everything you do. Like, that's why sports is so beneficial for young people to do.
Well,
because
and sorry, go ahead, I'm interrupting you.
Oh, no, you're good.
So beneficial. Continue.
Yeah, because it goes on to influence everything you do in life. If you learn that if you put your effort into this one task and at the end you accomplish it, you learn that about everything. Anything you want to do becomes possible because you've attempted those challenges before. And then adding the mental side of it, the psychological side of it, just makes you that much more powerful in everything that you do, everything that you attempt. So.
And you also have to realize that when like people are picking on you, it's because you're a threat. So they need to mentally get in there. And I never realized that. I'd be like, these people are making fun of me. And then people like my upperclassmen would be like, Maile, it's because you're a good server. Everybody like you're our clutch. And I'd be like, oh, okay. So they're trying to mess with my head. And they're like, they're trying to mess with you so that you go in and mess up the serve. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. So
and even something like that, what your teammates did for you, taking something negative and spinning it so that it helps you, it's
not everybody can do that. Yeah.
It's like a thinking process. You got to learn how to think that way.
You do. Create your own reality.
Yep.
So people want to come and see you for mental training, right? I always forget.
Mental training, performance training.
How do they get in contact with you?
They can email me. My email address is keiko@athleticintelligencehi.com. Or just visit my website.
Say it one more time.
Keiko, Keiko.
Okay.
At athleticintelligencehi.com. Oh, there we go.
Yay! Just wanted to make sure we got it. Okay.
Or they can just check out my website, athleticintelligencehi.com, and there's a lot more information up there, and I'm always open to questions or anything.
What are you hoping to achieve by doing this? Being involved in athletic intelligence?
Two things. On a personal level, this is what I'm passionate about. And if I could wake up every day inspired and so stoked to go to work, I think I'd be a pretty happy person. And secondly, I see such a huge opportunity to help local athletes just get that little bit of an edge over everyone else, and just being able to help out Hawaii a little bit. That would mean so much to me.
Aww, you will. You're gonna kill it. Moving on, because we only have like 4 minutes left now. What are the positives that you see in sports psychology? Like where it's going, how it's evolving? What would you like keep the same? And then what are some negatives, or what are some things that you would like to change or see evolve?
That's a good question. It's exciting to see more. At this point, most colleges have an actual sports psychologist on staff, and to see the field grow so much where it's now pretty much a requirement, it's a necessity to have a sports psychologist. It's gonna get to the point where the top high schools are gonna have sports psychologists or mental coaches or performance coaches or someone taking care of their athletes' mental well-being. So I see the potential for growth in the field, like exponential. Because everyone's looking for that little edge over everyone else.
Oh, completely. Because you get to a point where the playing field's kind of even, and you need
when everyone's just as talented, working just as hard, that's the thing that's going to set everyone apart.
Do you think coaches should be psychologically evaluated? I always think about this.
Yeah, I have this issue with, like old school coaches versus like the new school coaches, I guess, where the old school coaches is, they believe mental toughness, you either have it or you don't, suck it up, like push harder, whatever it is. But then the new wave of coaching that I see kind of coming in integrates more of the psychological beliefs, I guess, that maybe there's something else going on here and we can develop this athlete more effectively by targeting the things they might be weak at rather than saying like, oh, suck it up or whatever, and assuming that it's a personality trait rather than a learned skill.
Behavior.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? We have 2 minutes now. I want to make sure, because you have so much like to tell and so much experience, and you never really, Keiko doesn't like talking about herself. She'll never tell you like, oh, I was going to go to world championships or anything like that, and then you find out and you're like, what? And she's this amazing jiu-jitsuer and wrestler. So is there anything, what is one piece of advice you can give to athletes out there, especially young athletes? Like, what do you offer them?
I think this relates to sports as much as it does to life, I think. But if you can find something that you're really passionate about, for me it was wrestling, psychology, now it's jiu-jitsu. If you can find that thing that you're really, really passionate about and not be afraid to pursue it, then I think that's what makes life fulfilling. And for so many athletes, we find it in our sport, and that's why sports transforms people. It gives people identities, and it's such a powerful thing. But being able to find that one thing that you're passionate about, and even if people are telling you, like, it's stupid, it's a bad idea, don't do it, if it's something you really care about, then find a way to make it work. Like I said, plan, set your goals, and then figure out how you're going to get to whatever it is that you see in your future that you're so passionate about.
And if you need help with that, Keiko will help you.
If you need help with that, I'm here.
Well, with that, we're going to come to a closer. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Happy Aloha Friday. I'm your host, Maile Scarpino. This is the Empower Hour, and I was here with Keiko Akamine. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I'm excited to see your whole future expand here in the next chapter of your life in psychology. Have a good one, everyone. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Much love.